Hey everyone, in this video we're going to draw the lowercase l, I, and j. So with glyphs open, I'm going to open my L, my I, and my j, and I'm also going to open my n. With these selected, I'm going to start with the lowercase I. As we've done in the past, I'm going to barbarize my lowercase n, and I'm going to paste it in here. Just like that, we have most of the lowercase I. I'm going to add a square really quickly, so we can get the size of our tittle right. Now, you can choose what shape your tittle is, whether it's a square or rectangle or triangle or circle. I think for us it seems like it makes sense to be a circle. And right away I match the size of that dot to the shape of this. And when we look at it in our preview, or we hold space to preview it, it looks too small. Similar to our other measurements where we are using an overshoot, we need to do the same thing with a tittle. So that dot on the I actually needs to be a little bit bigger because it has so much white space around it. It's also something that we want to place near the center of our x height and ascender measurements. So I could start with that. I'm going to change it to a circle because I think a circle will work in both the versions that we're doing, the serif and the sans serif. And I'll bring it in there and delete my square. And now I know that this circle is even bigger than my stroke, but again, looking at that preview, it's still really small. So I'm going to hold Option and Shift, which will scale it from the center, and looking at my preview down there at the bottom, I'm going to scale this until it feels about right. Just like that, I have the DNA for my lowercase I. I'm going to go back to my N in that serif version, and I'm going to grab the three components that I need, the stem and the two serifs. My lowercase I, again, I'll bring that, get on the serif layer, and I'll paste it right away, and I have a really good start to that lowercase I. Back in my sans serif version, I'm going to get that dot, I'm going to go back to my serif version, and I'm going to paste them right back in. And now I'm just going to look to make sure it belongs in the right spot. With the serifs on here, the I looks even wider, so I might need to make this dot a little bit bigger still. These are all things that we can go in and change later. I could even go in and make this a component so that I only have to change it on the lowercase I or the lowercase j. Because my alphabet is so small, however, I'm just going to leave it at this, and we're going to start looking at that, and maybe it is too big now that I look at it again. So we'll make him just a little bit smaller. Somewhere in there. We might have to change him later, but that's okay. I'm going to quick change my side bearings before I leave. So I believe these were 63. Do we have this memorized yet? And 56. That seems about right. Then I can use the data from my I in my lowercase j. So I'll paste in the serif version, and I'll go back. Actually, I pasted that on the wrong layer, so let's paste it on the right layer. There it is. We'll go to my sans serif version. We'll copy it. Back in my lowercase j, we'll paste it in here. Now this can sort of get confusing when we're double clicking back and forth and changing layers like this, but lucky for us, Glyphs has given us this indicator down here so we know that this is the lowercase j. I hope that you're enjoying the video so far. This is a mid-roll just to ask, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do, as that's the best way to support the videos on this channel. If you already have subscribed, be sure to like the video and comment or tag somebody who might benefit from them. Now, back to our regular programming. I'm going to start with our sans serif version of this lowercase j. And you might even pull in some of the DNA from this lowercase n. So I like to barbarize all the time and pull other things in. So I'll pull in this part of the n in that sans serif version. And I'm just going to flip him up and down so I have an idea of what this shape might look like. Since we chose a font with a little bit of contrast, we are going to try and match that contrast shift. So even looking at how this is working, we are going to use something that gets down to this narrower, slimmer weight. I might just go in here and start to edit it from my ends perspective. So if I delete those points, that'll work, but I get this weird sort of nub thing here. If I grab a handle and delete it, now I get two really nice terminals. And instead of having to draw a J from scratch, I pulled it from that lowercase n, which gives us a really great starting point. Now I can even just drag this over if I want to. Make sure he lines up. And bring these points right to the top instead. Now I can delete my original rectangle that was holding me there, and I have a lowercase j. In our lowercase j, if we weren't doing a contrast font, we would need this to be a little bit higher, so we could bring them up, and we'd have a corner that we need to fix a little bit. But we can use this in our serif version, so we'll quick bring him over. Now that we've done the hard work there, we'll line them up with where our eye ought to be, and we'll delete that. Then I just need to make sure that I'm not having any sort of crazy overshoot on that serif bit, and I have a lowercase j. Similarly to what we've done in the past, I think this was 56, and I think the other one was 63. These are just guesses. Hopefully I'm right. And now we have a lowercase j. So we've got our lowercase I in a serif and a sans serif, and our lowercase j in a sans serif and a serif. Looking again at this serif j, I might actually want to make this tail a little bit smaller. Some of the reasoning behind what these upper and lower serifs are doing is to take up some of that visual space between characters. So when I look at my lowercase j, I can say that this upper serif is holding this white space in here, and that tail fits out a little bit further than that other bit. If I was worried about that, I might bring this foot in a little bit so it's a little bit narrower and a little bit closer to that serif width. In fact, I'm going to do that here just a little bit. And here's a benefit of designing two weights at once, is that I still have my under level that will help me out and make sure that I'm on track without going too far away from what I might have otherwise stray from. So we'll look at these two, and before I spend all evening adjusting this, we'll match our sans serif version to it so that he matches right up. We'll get him pretty close here, and we'll end with a workable j. Then finally, the lowercase l is just as easy as you'd expect it to be, but there is an option to make it more accessible for your font. For this one, we'll start with the serif version. So I'm going to bring in that lowercase I. If you notice what's happened here, and this is an error you might run into as well, is that this is telling me that there's no glyph available. And that's because I grabbed the component from our serif layer and pasted it onto that sans serif layer. This happens more frequently than not, which is one of the reasons I encourage you to design the whole font in one weight first. But we can make sure that we remedy that just by deleting it and now making sure we're on the right layer when we paste it back in. Our lowercase l in a serif version is quite simple. We just want to bring that all the way to that ascender height and make sure our side bearings are what we've been setting. And our lowercase can be just as simple, or our sans serif version, can just be as simple as you'd imagine, which is copying and pasting that rectangle right back in. I want to make sure I didn't paste two there. Okay, great. So our lowercase l can just be this thin sort of rectangle that sits there. Sometimes in these lowercase letters that are just stems like this, we might want to raise them or make them just a little bit wider by 1 or 2 points. But you'll notice in Glyphs panel even that they have a different sort of looking L with that little foot that sticks out. Sometimes for accessibility reasons, we want to use an L that has that little tail that sticks out. It's sometimes hard to space, but it helps us differentiate the lowercase l from the capital I the number 1, and the horizontal bar. So if we wanted to duplicate that or have an L that stuck out in our sans serif version, we might pull it from our J that we just drew. We could pull in something like this, and instead of having a curve that's this loose, so we can draw one just next to it so we can see how this might work. We would bring down these points so that they're a little bit tighter. We could even dip into our overshoot a little bit there and remedy this so that these curves actually start to work a little bit. Let's make sure those are working all right. And end with an L that has a little tail on it. That little tail, again, just helps with legibility. You can see here, now it looks like we're starting to spell the word Illinois or ill with that capital I and L, even though we drew it as a lowercase l. That preference is going to be up to you. I think for my sake and this demonstration's sake, we'll keep it at this more legible, more accessible lowercase l, because we want everybody to be able to enjoy our fonts equally. So again, we'll bring that stem all the way up to that ascender line. I'll delete this straight one over here, even though it is on that sans serif side. And then we'll go in and we'll set our side bearings. I think our sans serif was something like 63 and 56. And just like that, we have the next 3 letters of our alphabet. It looks like I may have fudged some of the side bearings here, so we'll just tighten him up a little bit. Make sure everything's working right. There's those numbers. And before we leave here, we'll look at our now letter forms that are looking pretty good. I hope this video was useful for you and helpful and you learned something new along the way. If you did, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and be sure to like the video and share it with other type nerds out there so we can get more people designing beautiful typefaces.